Well, hello, my gorgeous people. Welcome to the Fabulous Health Show, episode 12, How to Be Healthy on a Budget. I am your host, Terry Chrisman, and I'm a whole foods plant-based nutritionist. And this podcast is all about helping you obtain optimal health so that you can live a long and happy life and age with grace and vitality. So, this podcast goes live every day at 10 a.m. US Central Time during the month of October 2021. It's live on Facebook at terrychrisman.10 and also at Fabulous Health on YouTube. And I load it up to audio podcasts directly afterwards, so you can find it on things like Spreaker and Apple Podcasts, Google, Spotify. And if you want to know if it's on your preferred podcast platform, then go to fabuloushealth.net and click on the podcast tabs, and you'll see all the places that you can find the podcast, and you can sign up and subscribe right there. So let's get started. How are we going to stay healthy when cash is short? I hear you. You can go to a drive-through and you can get a whole meal which will fill you up for like $5. Unfortunately, that meal is probably full of saturated fat, sugar, salt, chemicals, all sorts of nasty things that is not going to keep you healthy. It might help you at that very instant where you've only got $5 in your pocket, but it's not going to help you in the long run. So today I'm going to teach you how you can get your cupboard and your fridge and your house full of healthy plant foods so that when you are hungry, you've got something to eat and it's not breaking your budget. So the first thing to realize is that we're not talking about vegan processed foods. We're not talking about buying all those meat alternatives, cheese alternatives, yogurt alternatives, all those things that cost a lot of money. You're going to steer clear of those because those things are not healthy for you anyway. We're going to stick with fruit, vegetables, legumes, grains, condiments, and spices. Now, you might also want to get a few nuts if you want to make your own nut milk. But I've got, you can actually make milk out of oatmeal, and that's a lot less expensive and it's got a lot less fat. So it's probably a better idea if you make your milk out of oatmeal rather than things like expensive cashews and things like that. So let's start with fruits and vegetables. People are always telling me that fruits and vegetables are really, really expensive. Well, they're not, people. You just have to do some research. I went to the supermarket in the spring and tomatoes and nectarines and all sorts of things were 87 cents a pound. That is really, really inexpensive. So what you need to do is you need to buy what's in season. If it's the middle of winter, don't try and buy grapes or pineapples that are fresh. They're going to be imported, they're going to have a lot of air miles on them, and they're going to cost a lot more money. So try and shop the things that are in season. Excuse me, I've got a hair on my face. It's driving me crazy. In season. The other thing that you can do is find out, are there any farms in your area where you can drive maybe a few kilometers or a few miles and you can pick your own. Usually the produce is a lot less expensive. Instead of buying your produce at the supermarket, why not buy it at a commercial market? My mum is the queen of budget, and she's been shopping at a commercial market since I was born. So let's call that 50 years. In fact, it's a bit more than 50 years. But she's been shopping at the same commercial market twice a week to get her fruits and vegetables. She never goes to the supermarket and pays those supermarket prices. So you get them, they're straight from the farm, they're a lot cheaper, and you get really, really high quality. The other option is if you have a big freezer, you can get frozen fruits and vegetables. Check out your local newspapers or even sign up to the emails for your local supermarkets and your big box stores like Costco or Sam's Club or whatever, and get the coupons and whatnot from them. And when they tell you that their organic frozen vegetables are 2 for 1 or buy 2 get 1 free, you get down there with your trolley and you fill it up so that you always have a stash of frozen fruits and vegetables in your home so that you'll be able to whip up meals very, very quickly. And the other option, And it's really not, I mean, I think it's budget friendly, but it may not be budget friendly in the instance, is to grow your own. I grow my own produce, and it actually in the first couple of seasons works out to be a lot more expensive than buying it at the supermarket, but it is therapeutic and it is really nice to grow your own fruits and vegetables. You know that they are fully organic. You know that you're getting them the freshest you can get them. And eventually, after a couple of seasons, when you're not paying for all the equipment, you end up with very, very cheap fruits and vegetables. And if you have room, a plot of land, then it becomes even cheaper. I'm doing all mine hydroponically, so obviously there is a cost there in the initial outcome, the initial purchase of the hydroponic equipment. And I found that my fruits and vegetables were very expensive for the first couple of seasons, but after that, after all the equipment's paid off, all I'm doing is using seeds and a little bit of nutrient, and it's very inexpensive. So what about beans? We, as whole food plant-based eaters, we eat a lot of beans. And when you buy them in the can, they can be expensive. You can buy the cheap ones that are like 99 cents, but then they may have lots of salt in them, and they may have the BPA lining, which is bad for you. BPA stands for bisphenol phosphate A, I think. Anyway, it's a lining that is put inside the can, and it has been shown to be detrimental to your health. Do some research on that just to get the lowdown on that. I didn't study that before this video, so it slipped out of my head a little bit, but research bisphenol A and BPA, and make sure that your cans don't have BPA in them. So some of the organic produce without the salt and without the BPA lining can be quite expensive if you buy it in a can. So beans, you can buy bulk. If you buy a pound of dried beans at the supermarket, it's like the quarter the price of the canned beans. Now, you don't even have to buy them by the pound in the supermarket in a little plastic bag. You can buy them bulk. You can buy 5 pounds of them, and they're even half the price of buying them in a 1 pound bag. So find a place that sells your beans and your grains, things like your oatmeal. Don't buy it in a plastic bag or a box. Go buy it bulk. Bring your own bags, and you'll find that you get it a lot less expensive. And then when you think to yourself, okay, where am I going to store all this stuff? Yeah, I've got all these beans, all these frozen vegetables, but if you've got a freezer, obviously they go in the freezer for the beans, for the frozen vegetables. I don't know what's going on with my brain today. My tongue is getting tired all over the place. I need to stop and concentrate. If you've got bulk items, you can put them in your garage, you can put them under your bed, you can put them in the space under your couch. If you're really, really short on space, you will find some room. If you've got a suitcase under your bed, fill your suitcase full of dried beans and grains. And then when you're storing them in your kitchen, store them in glass. So if you're watching this, you'll see that I've got these beautiful ball glass jars. They're really inexpensive. You can buy like a dozen of them for $12 down at the local Ace Hardware or something like that, or you can get them on Amazon. And if you have them in the glass jars, you will see them in your cupboard and you will eat them. If you put them in something that you can't see, you're not going to eat them, you're not going to use them. I actually have to tell you a story about my mum. My mum is very frugal, let's just put it that way. And she goes to the factory that cans the fruits and the beans and the vegetables twice a year. It's a 3-hour drive for her, but she is a big traveler. She's a grey nomad, so she hooks her caravan up to the back of her car and she goes on little trips all the time. And twice a year she makes sure that those trips go past the cannery. And the cannery is in the country where they grow all the fruit and all the vegetables and all the beans. And so it's very close to the source. And she goes there and she stocks up on all the canned goods that she needs for the year, and then puts them in her garage. And then she's got canned goods for the whole year at a fraction of the price that she would pay for them in the supermarket. And a lot of them don't have labels on them. So you buy the box and the box says, this is canned peaches, but when you open up the box, there's no labels on each of the cans. So you might need a Sharpie to write down what's on the can. Otherwise you might end up eating something that you're not looking forward to. The other place you can go to is factory outlets. Another supermarket my mum shops at is a supermarket called Not Quite Right. It's a fantastic name for a supermarket. It basically tells the story. So anytime a company releases a new flavor, they put it into this supermarket to test it out and see whether or not it sells. Anytime they've got some produce that is almost past its use by date, not past its use by date because they're not allowed to sell it, but anything that's coming up to its use by date, get it at that supermarket. Not Quite Right. Dried produce, easy, because it never goes out of date. So again, you can save some money there. And the other place is Amazon. Just do some research and you can find some really good deals on Amazon. I really like the Muir Glen fire roasted tomatoes in a can, and they're like $2.50 a can, which I think is quite expensive for a can of tomatoes if you buy them down at the Whole Foods. But I can get them on Amazon for like $1.50 a can if I buy a case. So I use them all the time, so I buy a case. The other thing that you can do is you can cook in bulk and freeze. So you can make your soups and your stews, your chili, your lasagna, even mashed potatoes. When it's spring and you've got tons and tons of zucchinis and pumpkins, make lots of soup, make lots of stews with that produce and the tomatoes, and then freeze it so that you've got your meals already done. I found this fantastic product. It's called Super Cube, and it's made out of silicone, and I use it to store in the freezer all the things that I cook. So it comes in different sizes. So this size here, 2 cup, is like for one meal, and then you can get little single cup size. If you're not looking at this on the video, if you're listening to this on the podcast, you can actually go to fabuloushealth.net and look at my shop under my favorite things, and you'll see these. They're called Super Cubes. They're made out of silicone, so you can actually bake in them as well. So you don't actually need to freeze them, as you can also bake in them. And if you grow your own herbs are very expensive when they're fresh in the supermarket. They are so cheap to grow. Buy a couple of packets of seeds, grow them in your garden, and you have a never-ending supply of herbs forever. And when they're going crazy in the spring and summer, chop them up and put them in these little freezy cubes. This is again another super cube, but it's smaller, and you can freeze your herbs in there so that they're ready to go when you need them in your cooking. So there's just a few ideas about how you can survive on a small budget by buying your fresh fruits and vegetables, your grains, and your legumes. I hope you enjoyed this. If you have any comments or questions about this podcast, I'd love to hear them. And please subscribe if you're listening to this on one of your podcast platforms, and subscribe if you're watching this on YouTube. I'd really love to have you. And tomorrow we're going to talk about how you can wean yourself off sugary soda. Soda is terrible. There's so much sugar in it, and it is a major cause of weight gain. So if you get rid of the sugary soda, you're going to lose some kilos and some pounds really quickly. That's tomorrow, and I hope you enjoyed this episode. So you have a fabulous day, and I'll see you tomorrow.